I woke up and checked my phone to see that I'd gotten 2 texts during the night. One told me that Wonjun's right hand had turned into a head of broccoli, and the other informed me that Malja, who lived with Mrs. An Pilsun, had died. Malja was a gray parrot that Pilsun received from her boyfriend on her 16th birthday. The bird was amazing at mimicking human voices and was so smart that it had somehow picked up the nuances of the human language. Malja had turned 20 years old this year, which made it practically middle-aged in parrot years, as the birds only lived to be 30 or 40 at the most. Due to her age, Malja had begun eating noticeably less a few weeks ago and could barely sit upright on its perch, even toppling over a few times. I could see its health was failing, and now I learned it had died last night. I read Pilsun's message again. Malja dead, come please. For an obituary, it was fairly dry and straight to the point. Which wasn't surprising, given how the two seemed less like an owner and her pet bird than 2 loudly swearing enemies whose idea of greeting each other was to ask when they were planning on dropping dead. One of them must have picked up the habit from the other, although it was unclear who. As I lay sprawled out in bed, musing over these thoughts, my phone rang. It was Wonjun. "Are you still in bed?" he asked sullenly. "My right hand has turned into broccoli." "I saw your text. What happened?" "Don't know." I looked at the clock. It was a little past 10 in the morning. "You should get that looked at," I said. "Yeah." We fell silent. I realized that Wonjun must be thinking. He wanted me to go with him to the hospital, this big man-child. Wait, where was the nearest hospital anyway? If your hand turned into broccoli, do you go to an internist or an orthopedist? Just as I was about to ask him, my phone let out a sharp beeping sound. There was another call waiting on the line. It had to be Pilsun. I ran some quick time calculations in my head. If I took Wonjun to the hospital, then headed over to Pilsun's house right away, that could work out for me time-wise. After I hung up, I texted Pilsun. "Wonjun's hand turned into broccoli. I'll stop by the hospital before I go to see you." Her reply arrived by the time I was already showered, lotioned up, and pulling on my jeans. "Oh no, poor thing, how dreadful!" I imagined Pilsun frowning at her phone as she texted those letters with the dead Malja beside her. Malja would look like she'd spring to life the moment she saw me walk into Pilsun's house, flapping her wings madly and squawking, "Get out of my house, you little bitch!" But alas, the bird will never speak again. Most likely, Pilsun had covered the dead parrot with a handkerchief, the familiar rose-patterned handkerchief that I knew so well. The thought was sobering. I sniffled all the way to Wonjun's house. When I opened the door, I saw Wonjun lying in the same position, in the very place I had expected him to be. "Hey!" Instead of waving, he lifted his right hand weakly, or rather, the head of broccoli, where his right hand should have been. Gingerly, I navigated around the islands of garbage and dirty laundry on the floor and headed to the sofa bed where Wonju was lying on his side. I smelled a whiff of fresh-cut grass from him. "When did this happen?" "I don't know. I woke up to find myself like this." I grabbed his right hand and gave it a good look. The skin from the middle of his forearm was a dull green, and the color gradually grew darker towards his hand, with small leaves sprouting here and there. His fingers were green stalks that turned into bunches of florets like so many tightly permed little heads. A perfect head of broccoli. Not only that, it looked incredibly fresh and firm, to the point where I might have eagerly picked it up had I come across it at the grocery store. Amazed, I couldn't help but continuously stroke the thick stalks. It was a majestic specimen of vegetable, and my teeth tingled with the desire to crunch down on the fresh, juicy broccoli. Wow, this is so cool, I murmured as I continued to stroke the broccoli. Wonjun retorted, Cool? This is definitely not cool for me. Why not? Looks pretty great. I was being serious, but Wonjun, thinking I was teasing him, glared at me. Let's just hurry and go to the hospital, he grunted. Yeah, let's go. With that, I helped him sit up. I got him dressed in a hooded t-shirt and pants, wet my hands and brushed them through his hair, and finally removed the crust from his eyes. Only when I had wrapped his broccoli hand in a big towel did he get up to follow me. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. This could happen to anyone, I said. But my job is all about having swag, Wonjun muttered as he shoved his broccoli hand, still wrapped in a towel, into the front pocket of his t-shirt. Swag. Psh. You're just a broccoli boy, I thought to myself as I locked his front door.